Linda Hansen, a children's author and illustrator who brings stories to life with her vibrant watercolor illustrations. After founding a summer camp where kids explored fishing, swimming, and arts and crafts, Linda now channels her passion for art and nature into delightful tales like Otto the Otter, A Big Surprise, and Little Lost Dog Looking for His Home. Residing in Florida with her husband and two dogs, Linda continues to inspire young readers with adventures drawn from the world around her. You can find more on her website, lindahansenauthor.com, and that's Hansen, Hansen. For all other authors who would like to participate in our podcast, please visit southerndragonpublishing.com. Fill out the application, schedule your Zoom session, and we will get you started. In the meantime, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our podcast and all our other social media pages. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Linda Hansen. I am a watercolor artist, and I paint or illustrate and write 2 children's picture books. I just started doing this by accident, which would be the story of Otto the Otter, A Big Surprise. And we have a pond next to our home, and we have an otter who visits it on a very regular basis. I call him Otto. But I can't tell you the big surprise because you need to get the book to read it. And then 2 years ago, the week before Halloween, we found a lost dog on our street. And Little Lost Dog Looking for His Home is the story of what we did to try to get him back. And so, not that I ever meant to be an author, it's something I never dreamed of doing, but I'm now the author of 2 books. And the only people who know their true stories of my life are people who would listen to something like this. Otherwise, you would never know that.
Okay, that's perfect. Are you a member of the Children's Illustrators Society?
SCWBI or all those long. Yes. It's a lot of initials, but yes.
Do you find them helpful as an author?
Oh, are we recording?
Yes. If you don't want to answer that, that's fine. Just say, nope. Next question.
I will answer that question. I joined it 2 years ago, and at that time I found them to be very not useful to a self-published author. And now they seem to be truly broadening their scope to be more inclusive. Have I taken advantage of it? No, not yet. Bad on me.
Are you a member of a writers group that you locally?
I have not officially joined a writers group. As I said in my startup talk about myself, writing was never something that I dreamed of doing. And so it wasn't something that was always with me. And I am much older than I look or talk or act. I tell people I am OLD. I don't mind sharing. 2 months ago, I turned 80. And so to be starting this new venture since I was 78, I'm not as motivated as younger people are. Am I making a mistake? Perhaps. And I might change what I'm doing.
Okay. Are you self-published or traditional?
I am self-published.
And which platform do you use?
Well, I don't have any option but to be on Amazon. They seem like they rule the world. And I'll be polite and not say anything negative about them. When you're on Amazon, they print your soft covers, which are quite beautiful. I'm not unhappy with their soft covers. Their POD, their print on demand, is done through Ingram Spark. I'll be polite. I don't have anything nice to say. And they print, and I've learned so much. I've only been doing this for 2.5 years, and I'm somewhat astounded by all I have learned because I didn't know what POD was 3 years ago. And I've since learned that what they do is digital. And my book came and it looked nice, but I had been directed towards doing offset printing. So I contacted 5 of the large offset printers in the United States. I do not want to use non-American companies. My book says printed in the United States, and I am very proud to have it say that. I contacted 5 American printers who all do offset, got quotes. 2 were way high, and 1 was real low, and the other 2 were within 25 cents of each other. So I contacted one, and that's who I printed my books through. My books are, I have to say, absolutely gorgeous. I have end pages. Ingram Spark doesn't do end pages. My books are side stitched. Ingram Spark only glues. And of course, I learned the difference between offset and digital. There's no comparison. The weight of my cover is heavier. The pages are heavier. And I've had several occasions where people have had one of each book in their hand, which doesn't happen often. But if they have both books in their hands, they will always say, may I buy this one? And they want the one I had offset printed.
Oh.
So I'm thrilled with that. I only use Ingram Spark because I've been blessed to be able to get into 6 Barnes and Noble stores, and they only buy through Ingram Spark, as do other large retailers. I had somebody tell me they bought my book, and I said, oh, where? And they said, at Target. And I said, really? Well, they bought it online from Target. Target uses Ingram Spark. So you can't really cut your nose to spite your face. So I'm with them, but I don't ever buy books in volume from them.
Right, right. Now that sounds really smart, and it's good advice because I haven't done any children's books myself, but there are plenty of you out there that do, so they probably appreciate it. Do you mind mentioning your offset printer that you like?
I love plugging them. They're in St. Louis. They're called Formax, Formax. The contact there is Kristen Cronenberg. If anybody's interested, they can email me, go on my website and send me a message, and I will be glad to share her phone number with her. What's interesting is she did my first book. And then when it came time to do a second printing, I asked her, and the price had gone up $1 a book. And it was, holy cow. Well, that was post-COVID when paper had been in a shortage, and this was difficult and that was difficult. And we know everything's gone up in price. So I contacted the other offset printer who had been at the same 25 cent different. And just out of curiosity, I contacted her and I said, if I needed the books, and she said, oh, it's the same price as I quoted you. And I said, really? And she said, yes. Guess who I ordered the books from? Her. So the books come and they look lovely. But as I'm looking at them, as I felt them, the cover wasn't the same. As I looked through them, there was just something about the quality of the color wasn't the same, wasn't terrible. You know, it was maybe, if Formax is a 10, this was maybe an 8.5. So it wasn't awful. But the stitching didn't look at all the same. So I called her, the sales rep, and I said, I want you to understand, I'm not asking you to take the books back. I just want to share some thoughts. We had a pleasant chat, and she lives on the east coast of Florida. So all of a sudden she said, may I drive over to see your book? I said, are you serious? And she said, yes. So she and her fiance drove over in the morning one day. We had lunch here at my home, and I showed her both books, hers and the one from Formax. And she looked at me and she said, you just taught me a lesson. My fault. I should have asked you to send me one of your other books. If you had, I would have told you to stay with them. And I said, are you serious? She said, everything you said is true. Now, I learned a lot because I had always heard the expression Smith sewn or Smythe sewn, however I don't quite know what the pronunciation is, for when a book is sewn. And that's what I asked her for. She explained to me that's how her books are done. So I called Kristen at Formax and she said, our books are side stitched. And I went, oh, so I would always get a side stitched book and not the other kind of stitching. And the young lady asked for Formax's name and Kristen's contact number, and they've already communicated she's trying to rep them as well. And the book's nice from the other company. I can't criticize it. It's just that it would be an 8 to Formax's 10.
Okay. So as a indie author, do you find that you do your best sales when you go to book events, or is your book selling better at like Barnes and Noble?
That's really a difficult question. Barnes and Noble buys their books from Ingram, so I don't get paid a lot.
Right.
You know, I mean, because they pay Ingram and all you get is what Ingram gives you, which is not a lot. Although I've had sales directly to me come through that, as well as I've had contacts from schools and other dynamics. But that's not a big seller, other than the mere fact that you can say your books are in Barnes and Noble. And when I got into my first bookstore and my husband and I drove there to see my book on a shelf, it was beyond words to me. You know, it was like, I am a real author. I'm in a bookstore. And every time I go into the bookstore and I see it, I get that same thrill that's just truly beyond words. In terms of dollars, I make a lot more when I sell my books myself. They're priced the same, but the profit is all mine. Right. Now, I have managed to get into some small indie bookstores. They want their percentage, so I don't make as much, but that's fine. I've had 2 indie bookstores who have brought me into their stores, but they only brought them in because I was with Ingram. I was in Spain a year and a half ago, and I travel with my books, and I saw this gorgeous children's bookstore, and I went in, and not only has my one book, Otto, in English, but it's been translated into Spanish. This man bought both the Spanish version and the English version, hardcover and softcover. And actually, I'm waiting for a check from him right now. But when I walked out of the store, he gave me a business card and he said, contact these people. They're in Barcelona, but they only buy English books. And so I wrote them. They bought books. Now, they only bought it because it was on Ingram. And Ingram has, I guess, printing places all over the planet. So they were able to England. So that wouldn't have happened otherwise. My big theory is you have to be willing to knock on doors. Just because somebody tells you no doesn't mean never. It may mean no, not at this time. So wait a month, wait 2 months, even wait 3 months, knock on the door again. And this time the door might open and say yes. And I do markets, I do book fairs, and I can probably, in the long run, for in my pocket money, I do better with those. But then you have to be careful because some of the markets and some of the fairs can be very costly.
Yeah.
And then I don't sell enough books to make even the cost of what it cost me. There's I don't want to name names, so I'll be polite. There's a very large, really important book fair that takes place for schools.
Oh, okay.
And my book is from kindergarten to 5th grade. And it also meets STEAM. It's educational, especially the Otter book, and the schools love it. And I would love to go there. It's 2 days. It is very expensive just to get table space. Then I have to worry about having a hotel room for the 2 days. And it's in a city where the hotels are not cheap. And then you're having food. I would never make my money back. So as much as I would like to go, I haven't. You have to be selective.
Yeah, gotta do what works for you.
And I think selling children's picture books, and this is just a sense I have, but I think it's much more difficult because your market is small compared to thrillers, mystery books. Seems like romance novels are still going crazy. And so I think that people who have those kinds of books can probably sell more than I do when they're at a fair or market. Last year, I was at the Venice Book Fair, and I did pretty well. I was very happy, and I'm hoping to be back again next year. I'm waiting for the application. But I can tell you the people that wrote mysteries and thrillers just knocked it out of the box.
Seems like there would be an older clientele in Venice.
You know, it seems to have really changed. I saw lots of young people with children, with babies being, pushed by.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that when you're at a fair or at a market, you can't just sit there. You have to be proactive. And you just don't go, hi, how are you doing? Because people will just go, fine, and they keep walking past you. So you have to have something with which you can engage them. If I see them carrying a book bag or books in their arms, I'll go, show me what you've been buying. What do you have? That creates conversation. And they'll stop and talk to you, and then they might look at your book. If they have a child, sometimes I go, I have a book that little boy or little girl, they're going to want to read. The majority of the time, that person will stop. You have to be willing to be out there and be proactive. You can't just sit and be patient.
Good advice. Let's see. So you're going to the Sunshine State Book Festival. Have you been to the Amelia Island Book Festival before?
I applied to that last year, and I guess I don't know how they jury people in or how they make that decision, or if it's just so many people, I didn't make the cut. And that was last year. And then this year, I just didn't try.
Okay.
Shame on me.
To me, it seems like your book would do really well there.
Well, that's what I thought. And so I was really surprised. I don't know whether it's because they have just a limited number or they try to take their original people first. But you know what I said about the door being knocking on doors? I didn't knock on it again. I didn't take my own advice.
Okay. Have you put your book up for the Palm Award, Florida?
I put it up for, I forget which award it is. I sent it in for one of the big awards. I got up a level. I didn't get shut down right away, but I didn't make it. But I do have Reader's Choice Award. I've gotten a Kirkus review. I've gotten a Goodreads review. It disturbs me that we have to pay for those opportunities. I don't believe that we should be spending $300 or $500 to win an award and then not even get it. So I don't do it anymore. You know what those awards mean. Another author knows what those awards mean. Does Jane Doe, who's going to buy a book for her child, have any idea what that means? No. And I don't think it matters to her.
No, it really doesn't. They like the pictures and the graphics and the stories.
They react to, did the book catch their eyes? And I will say, because I paint in watercolor and my books are my creations, when I tell people this is my work from cover to cover, they're always very interested. And when I'm in Barnes and Noble or some indie bookstore, and I don't mean to be deprecating to any other children's picture books, because it's going to sound that way. Today, the majority of graphics are computer generated.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, they all look alike. They're all big eyes and big mouth and hands up in the air. And sometimes I stand there and I can't understand who illustrated this book and who illustrated that book. You see my book on the shelf and it jumps off in your face. It is so clearly different. And that's true with both my books. Little Lost Dog, when people see this dog on the cover, they all want to pick it up, and then they come and they tell me, I have a dog that looks just like this, or my friend does. But I think that because mine are painted, and especially the Otter book, because I like color and they're very vibrant, and I think it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. What would you advise a newcomer to the field about becoming a published author?
This is a crazy story. My first book was being printed. I was waiting for it. And there's a very large arts and crafts fair near where I live. And we go to it every year, my husband and I. And I knew I had previously seen authors there. So I said to him, let's go. Okay, let's go. And there was a woman sitting at her table with a tent, and she has children's picture book stuff that's so overwhelming to me. Games for schools and a spinning wheel. And I'm going, oh my heavens, I didn't even think of doing any of this. And she had a couple of people buying books, so I just waited my time politely. And when there was no one there, I approached her and I introduced myself and explained to her that I was a brand new children's picture book author, and I wanted to ask her some questions. So she looked at me, and I'm not a shy personality. I am a big, in-your-face personality, as I'm sure you've gathered and your visitors have gathered. And so she said, well, let me ask you this. How are you going to market your book? Oh, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And she looked at me and she said, no, I asked you, how are you going to market your book? So I sort of thought a moment, took a breath, and I go, well, I'm going D, E, and F. And then with that, she looked at me, she said, no, I asked you, how are you going to market your book? And I could just feel myself getting riled and pressured and disturbed and all sorts of other negative emotions. And I thought, okay, Linda, stay calm. Don't get snitty with her. So I took a deep breath and I thought, and I go, well, I'm going to do H-I-J. Now you answered my question. Don't ask me what I said. I don't remember. He then told me about a book, and I don't remember the title of the book. I have it somewhere in the house. I bought it. It's something about self-publishing a book, but in the very beginning of the book, it says, if you have not figured out how you're going to market the book, don't write the book. And I must admit that that had never entered my mind. I was writing a book. I had lunch today with a first-time author who has a new book. And I asked her, I said, how are you marketing it? Well, and you got that dazed look. She didn't know what she was doing. And so that would be my advice, is know how you're going to market your book and really think about it. And I also think a lot of it has to do whether you're doing it such as I do, which is really as a hobby. I don't want to be in the red. I would like to be in the black. I would like to make some money from it, which I am. But there are people, children's book authors, who only do school visits and literally make their income from doing school visits. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. And so there's lots of ways that if you're still 30, 40, 50, and you need this to be your income, there are things you can do. And so I think you have to decide where you're at in life and what your goals are. I've been writing since I was 8 years old. And I think, not me. This was an accident because my neighbor forced me to do it.
One thing that I usually ask, especially children's authors in Florida, about the book bans. I know your book is not going to be on there.
One of my best friends, who was my first watercolor teacher, she teases me all the time that the Otter book is going to get banned. So now I'm going to tell the big surprise. as you're reading the book, there's a page that says Otto turned out not to be Otto. And the next page it says Otto is a girl. She came to the pond with 2 babies. So my friend tells me all the time I'm going to get banned because he's a trans. And then she laughs. I'm sure that's not going to happen. But it's crazy out there. It's very disturbing. I was in Orlando a year ago doing story time and meet the author at the Barnes and Noble in Orlando. And I had stopped at a restaurant to grab a bite to eat before I walked in. And one thing, this is for children's book authors, but maybe for any author, I don't go into restaurants that I'm not carrying my books. And then I put them on the table. I don't have to say anything. People walk by and they'll go, "Oh, what's that?" And then I explain, and I can't tell you how many books I've sold like that. So I'm in line waiting for my order. And this young man, young to me, I mean, he may have been 35, 40 years old. And he goes, "What are you holding?" And I explained to him, he was a 3rd grade teacher in that school district. And that then led to a conversation. And he had said that they had come and removed every single book from his classroom library to read and review. Now, this was a 3rd grade teacher. They removed Old Yellow. Hello, what's wrong with that book? Because it's a 5th grade book. It doesn't belong in a 3rd grade class. And he told me, I don't remember now what the book was, but there was another book equal in value to it that's got nothing inappropriate in it, but it was too old for the children. And I thought, gee, some kids are readers. And it was interesting to me because I was a reader and I had read every book in our 3rd grade classroom. And the teacher I had, her name was Mrs. Robson. That's a long time ago, but that's who it was. She took me to the 4th grade class, Mrs. Lang. And she said, "May my student read your books?" And she said, "Of course she can." Bam, over a period of time, I read those books. The next thing Mrs. Robson did was she took me to the 5th grade teacher, Miss Fletcher. And Miss Fletcher said, "Of course she's welcome to read my books." I think that not only are we too wound up about what's appropriate, and I won't go there because that's political, but to take a book like Old Yellow out of a 3rd grade classroom because you say it's too old for a child to read, maybe that child's bright and is able to read at that level, and now you're keeping them tied down. I don't understand it.
Yep. Very good.
Did that answer your question? Long story.
No, it's perfect. I'm just gathering information. Now, the next one is going to be about AI. That seems to be the biggest thing. I know you said earlier, because you are an artist and you create your own scenes and all that, would you ever consider using AI for inspiration for any of your books?
No. One word. Did you notice that? No.
It works.
Yeah, I mean, I just think whether you're a writer, whether you're a painter, no matter what art form you do, to use AI to create your work. And that's not putting down people who do graphic design, because that's certainly, I imagine, AI driven. You can't go on Google anymore that it doesn't, you get 2 words in and all of a sudden it's got 10 answers. But I think that if you're a true artist who's doing things that are truly original, I think to use AI, would Van Gogh have done that? I don't think so.
All righty. Hopefully this will be one that you haven't already answered. Okay. Now you, as a reader, what genres do you usually like to read the best?
Novels. And I'll just give it that answer. I'm not a history buff. I'm not a romance girl by any means. I guess the easiest thing to say who my favorite author is.
Okay.
I am a huge fan of Michael Chabon. He was doing a book tour. Oh, this must be 12, 13 years ago. And I was from St. Louis before I moved to Florida. And he was coming to the local library. I was like a little kid. I was so excited. Michael Chabon's coming here. So I went after dinner and I listened to him read his new book that he was pushing. And then, of course, he did signings and he had books for sale. I had already bought the new book. And I had walked in with my new book, not knowing that they were going to be selling books there. And of course, he signed it. But what's also interesting is he had a children's picture book. And that caught my attention. I bought a copy of it and he signed that for me as well. And he actually chatted with me for maybe 5 minutes. People were waiting for him, but he and I were chatting. About 2 years, maybe 3 years went by. And without making it a long story, I ran a small nonprofit. That was my job in St. Louis. And as part of it, I had founded a special needs camp for children ages 6 to 17. And one day I thought, well, son of a gun. So I looked to see who published his book, and I wrote the publisher and explained what I did and, la-di-da, and asked if they would be willing to donate a book for every one of my children. I get back a letter saying, no, we won't do that. Okay. So then I thought about it a little more, and I went online and I searched out his agent. And I wrote the agent the same kind of letter. This is what I would like. Didn't hear anything. And however many months went by, 3 months, 6 months, my phone rang one day. Linda Hansen, yes, this is she. Hi, it was a young woman. Hi, I'm whatever her name was. I'm Michael Chabon's assistant. And I'm going, oh my gosh. The agent had forwarded my letter to him. He had his assistant call me. She wanted to know how many children are at my camp. I told her. Within a week to 2 weeks, I received 100 books in a box. That's a gentleman. But he was already my favorite author. He just became to me a special. Yeah.
Okay. I had it on the tip of my tongue.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yes.
There's all the stuff because we're talking about banning books.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this very famous book that was later turned into a movie called Fahrenheit 451.
Right.
And for people who don't know, the temperature of 451 is when things burn.
Mm-hmm.
And if people who are listening to this have never read this book, they should, or watch the movie. It's important because that's what I fear we're coming to. And so I posted on Facebook about a year ago that Fahrenheit 451 is sadly becoming a reality. I only had 2 or 3 people who responded, but I said that I was 2 books. I'm the prophet and I'm the little prince.
All right.
Those are my 2 books.
So do you use social media to help get the word out on your books?
I do. I have a regular Facebook page, which is truly my family and friends. Then I have a Facebook author page.
Good.
It could be a lot of my family and friends, so I feel like I'm being repetitive. But I'm starting to get more people that I have no idea who they are. So
Right.
they're finding. And I must admit, my fault, I don't post there as much as I should. I'm starting to. And then I use Instagram. But of course, now Facebook bought Instagram. So it seems like if you post on Instagram, it shows up on that part of my Facebook page, I think. I don't quite understand it.
You have to make it.
Well, and I've told it to share. But what is interesting, Again, I don't post there as often as I should. And I've read things and been told things that you shouldn't always post about your books,
Right.
that want to get to know you as well. So I'm trying to do a little bit more open-ended things on that. But I paid someone who posted every day for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
To my knowledge, it didn't sell a single book. That was disappointing. You know, I mean, I paid for somebody to do that. What was interesting is it was only about the books. Nothing ever was discussed about who I am. And a couple of times I sent this person an email saying, hey, on that last one you did this, but I think maybe this would have been better. Could you please make sure you do it in one? And I did that 2 or 3 times in the month. The person never took my suggestions or advice. So I'm not so sure how it works. And I've only had a few authors tell me that it's been beneficial to them. Now I have one who says they sell tons of books. So I need to look to see what she's doing.
Well, actually, have the right instincts. Just do it yourself. Post pictures of the animals in your yard, your gardening, your do a little short video of you painting. People like that kind of stuff. They feel engaged and they get intrigued about you. And then they find, oh, well, she published a book. So go check out the book. It's kind of that sort of thing.
You know, you just told me something that I've never done. I've never done a video of me painting.
Oh, that would be, supreme right there.
You know, now I did do what I thought was a real cute video just before school started.
Okay.
I held up both my books in my hands and I talked to the camera about school starting and that maybe you'd think of buying one or both of my books for your child's classroom or for the elementary school that's near to you. And a lot of people liked it, but I didn't get any sales. You can't win all the time, but
Well,
I like the idea.
it's a matter of people need to see things repetitively in different formats, but the same kind of message.
Yeah.
Like you sitting on the back porch reading your book and saying, this would be a great gift for an elementary school student just starting out, kind of thing. And then a couple of days later, do something else on a boat or, whatever.
I need to broaden how I think about it. Again, that's my not expanding my mind.
Okay. Well, I look forward to more posts, especially those painting ones. I watch a young lady on TikTok and she is a watercolor artist. She says, it's so simple. Just follow along. We do a little bit of this. Don't worry about it if it doesn't look good. We do a little of that. And she brings you in and engages you, and she's bubbly. And
that's probably the answer. I've done lots of little videos and, of course, lots of photographs when the otter is in the pond.
Oh, nice.
Because not everybody can do that.
That's true.
Then we had a visitor that we didn't want. And yeah, people who live in Florida know exactly what I mean. And I took pictures of him and put him. So I've done a little bit of that, but not enough of me. I'm going to do that.
Okay, cool.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Just be patient and persevere. Humans are strange. It takes us 7 times to see something in different ways in order for it to click. At least that's what I've been told.
I've been told the same thing. And patience is not my forsuit. Ask my husband. He'll tell you that.
So are you working on a new book?
I've had a lot of pressure to do a new book. And I don't paint fast. So if there's 16 pictures that need to go into a children's picture book, it takes me about a week before I'm satisfied. So that would be 4 months of just painting, let alone the rest of the process of editing and having the graphic designer do their work and then the printing. So the soonest I'd have it out would be a year from now.
Right.
And I have a lot of books in the house that I need to sell. And I order 1,000 books at a time. So, yeah. So there's a lot of books in the house that need to be sold. So I'm putting it off. That unwanted creature at the pond, everybody on Facebook went crazy, saying that's what the new book should be. And I've given it a lot of thought. And they're scary creatures, and people don't like them. But I've come up with a title and what a children's story will be about it. So I'm not working on it yet, but it's in my mind.
It's back there. It's working.
Yeah, it's percolating like the coffee pot.
All right, last question. And I'm starting to ask this of every author because I'm going to do a series hopefully soon about this, especially because we are older individuals getting into this game. I'm assuming that you filed for copyright for both of your books. Okay.
Yes.
And you got your certificate in the mail.
Yes.
And you know that those are inheritable. They're willable.
I didn't know that. I didn't think about it because now this is strange. I'm not the only person like this, but I'm certainly in the minority. The fact that I've written children's picture books is totally crazy. I have no children of my own. Having no children of my own, I have no grandchildren. It also so happens I have no nieces and I have no nephews. So when my last day comes, it's my last day. And sometimes I look around things in my home and I think, this is just going to get thrown out into the trash. Or maybe it'll go into an estate sale and somebody will buy it for 50 cents, which is heartbreaking. And that's been a big concern of mine. But my husband and I, and we're both in the same situation. And we're not millionaires. We're not broke, but we're not bloated. But we have an agreement with one of the community foundations, and whatever is left when we die, financially, everything is being donated to the foundation, and they have a list of 10 charities that we care about, and all of our finances will be distributed to these 10 charities over a period of 10 years. They told us we could do it in perpetuity, and they said, you know what? The amount of money would be so small if you did it in perpetuity. And if you do it in 10 years, they're going to get a fair amount of money once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that I currently know over the next 5 years, 10 years, how much ever long I have left, they're going to always know me so that when my time is through and they get a check, they're going to know it came from Linda, or it came from Linda and Gary. So I didn't know that they were, that you could put them in your will, but nobody's going to care.
You never know.
I'll have to look into that. I never knew that.
That is a new thing that I'm trying to get other authors to realize, because once your book goes out of print, you still have 70 years after you pass that it is copyrighted to you and or to your heirs, whoever that might be. And the certificate can be passed to them.
That is really interesting. I was not aware of that. And perhaps somebody would want it. That's a really interesting thought. I think it also might have more to do with what kind of genre you write in.
Well, like you said, a children's charity may want to use it as a fundraising kind of thing in the future.
Could be. I have been very fortunate in my trying to market the book, knocking on doors. Mm-hmm. I contacted the Moat Aquarium in Sarasota.
Oh.
And gift shops have really changed. especially if you're in the children's book genre. Most children's books today are run by a third-party vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go to a children's hospital and speak to the buyer of the gift shop. There's a third-party vendor, and half the time you can't even get the name of who that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried, because of the book being about an otter, I Googled every zoo in the United States that has North American river otters. I contacted all of them. They all said, we don't sell our books. We have we do, but it's through a third-party vendor. Couldn't get the information. But when I called the Moat, their bookshop, their gift shop is through a third-party vendor. The lady with whom I was speaking said, call this person. The Moat has a program called See Me Read. It's SEA. And they use books that deal with marine life.
Mm-hmm.
So I contacted the man she told me to reach out to. He had me send him a book. And he got back to me. He said he wants to use the book for his program. So the Moat Aquarium is using my silly book in their See Me Read program. And then because of him, there's an organization in Michigan or Minnesota, the CILC. Do you know them?
Not yet.
The Center for Interactive Learning and Communication might be the last word.
Okay.
And they put together all sorts of programs throughout the United States and through Canada that schools can use, homeschoolers can use, people can use. It can be about art. It can be about reading. It could be about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the Moat works with them. And periodically, when they're doing a new book or something that is specific, they put together a program. And so I've now done 2 programs with Moat, with CILC. They have me on the live Zoom. I'm an active participant, and people need to look into the CILC and see if they can't make it work for themselves.
Okay. No, that sounds great. My suggestion would be the Florida State Parks. Stephen Foster Memorial State Park has their own gift shop, and they buy books on commission. They buy them outright and sell them, especially local authors. So any of your state parks, the bigger ones in your area, may be interested in that, especially since they're about otters.
I just wrote this down. I contacted a lot of the parks. I tried Googling again, do you have otters in your park? And I tried reaching out. I'm in several of the local, in the Tampa area parks. They took it for their gift shop. They bought them once. Some of them bought them twice. And my fault, I didn't keep knocking on the door. So I think that if I don't reach out and say, do you need another set of books? A lot of them don't respond. I just contacted one over near, I think it's near DeLand, the De Leon Spring Park. And I got the name of the guy to contact. I've called him. I've emailed him. I've not heard a word back. So it's frustrating.
You just got to go over there with your books and say, here they are.
That, you're right. Sometimes you need to just walk in. But usually when I do something like that, I will attach a PDF of my book so that they're able to see it.
Right. Okay. Well, it was a thought.
That's a great, that Stephen Foster, I just wrote it down because I will reach out to them. I also reached out, and again, it's because I wrote a children's book. So if somebody who writes romance or mystery or sci-fi, they're going to go, this means nothing to me. And I agree. But schools can be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, they can be a source of revenue. And so I just spent time knocking and doing phone calls to the school districts throughout the state. And I have a couple of bites. I have a couple of people that are communicating with me. And one said that after the first of the year, she would like me to come to the school.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see. It takes a tremendous amount of work.
It does. It is a business, and you have to keep after it. The other thing that Stephen Foster Memorial State Park, they have the Florida Folk Festival on Memorial Day weekend. Huge, huge event. Lots of vendors. It's 3 days. It's kind of rough, but they do have a lot of authors. I've even set up a table there twice.
Huh, I'll have to look into it for next Memorial. And Memorial Day is about my deadline for doing things outside because
Yeah.
it gets so hot. I don't do June, July, August outside. I've now started again.
Well, that particular weekend, yeah, there's a juried, you send in an application, you don't have to pay a fee.
Really?
They were for years, for the last couple of years, they were doing a percentage of sales as a donation. So if you sold, they asked for 10, 15% of your sales. But it is a 3 day event that you have to commit to. And the vendors, if you get in early enough, if you have a travel trailer or something, they have camping set up.
Do I look like a girl who goes in a camping trailer?
Hey, you never know. Our beers are all around us.
My husband teases me that I think a Holiday Inn is roughing it.
Cabins too, very beautiful cabins right on the river.
When I was a child, my father loved to fish, and we used to go camping. I never liked it. I tolerated it, but it was just not my thing.
Okay.
I used to say I was a princess, and then I said, well, I'm too old to be a princess, so I'm the queen. And now that I'm this old, I go, I'm now the empress.
There you go.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, is there anything else you would like to say to readers or writers as a closing?
I have one thing to say, which is age related. One is never too young or too old to do something that you've never done and have wanted to. Success is subjective, it's not objective. And there's only one failure in not trying. So if there's something that you think, whether, like I said, you're a 5-year-old or whether you're an 80-year-old, if there's something you think you would like to try to do it.
Very good advice. And Miss Linda Hansen, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast.
I cannot thank you enough for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episodes. If you enjoyed our conversation, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our podcast. It helps us bring you even more amazing content. And hey, if you're an author, narrator, publisher, entertainment lawyer, agent, or anyone working in the book industry, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to southerndragonpublishing.com and fill out our online form to connect with us. Let's keep building this incredible community together. Until next time, happy listening.